Welcome to the Bluesound Professional Technical Webinar on the A860 8-channel amplifier. I am Ross Eberlin, the Product Manager for Bluesound Professional. I will be taking us step by step on how to use the A860. Let's begin. The Bluesound Professional A860 is a high-quality 8-channel power amplifier for use in commercial installations. This 2U amplifier provides 50 watts times 8 at 8 ohms, 60 watts times 8 at 4 ohms, or 120 watts at 8 ohms per pair of channels in bridge mode. A standby mode can be triggered remotely or automatically for low power consumption when not in use. A global input can be assigned to multiple outputs, and global and local output facilitate multiple amplifier installations. Thermostatically controlled fans ensure trouble-free operation in a wide range of conditions. The features are listed as below. Please review the specifications of the A860 as listed. Section 1. Zone 1 to 4 LED indicators. Zone input channels with active source or input signal will have their corresponding zone LED indicators illuminated in blue. If there is no active source or input signal connected to a particular zone, the corresponding zone LED indicator will not light up. Section 2. Global Input-Output. Always turn off the A860 and other components in the system before connecting or disconnecting anything to global input-output terminals. Ensure that the supplied input-output terminal blocks, plus, minus, ground, are wired accurately to corresponding output terminals of compatible external devices such as preamplifiers, processors, or other applicable devices. Install the wired-up input-output terminal block to A860's global input terminal. Ensure that the supplied input-output terminal blocks, plus, minus, ground, are wired accurately to corresponding input terminals of compatible external devices, such as amplifiers, receivers, or other applicable devices. Install the wired-up input-output terminal block to A860's global output terminal. The global output terminal is a line-level loop-through output. The same level of input signal at the global input terminal is available at the output terminal, thereby allowing the same signal to be shared or passed on to another amplifier. These input-output terminals are dedicated only to global settings. If the local global mode selector switch of a particular zone is set to global, the source connected to global's input terminals will become the active input for the particular zone. Section 3. Global Gain Control. Before switching on the A860 for the first time, make sure all gain controls are set to minimum level position. This gain control is dedicated only to global settings. Rotate clockwise or counterclockwise to adjust global audio level. Refer also to item about gain control zone 1 to 4. Section 4. Speaker out, zone 1 to 4. Connect external speaker cables to supplied speaker terminal block, ensuring that the connections match A860 zone speaker out terminal markings. At stereo mode, ensure that particular zone's R+ is connected to the plus terminal of your right speaker and R- connected to the speaker's minus terminal. Connect the particular zone's speaker out terminals marked L+ and L- to the left speaker in the same way. At bridge mode, connect the external single speaker to the particular zone speaker out terminals marked R+ and L+, ensuring that L+ is connected to the external speaker's plus terminal and R+ connected to the external speaker's minus terminal. Section 5. Fuse holder. In the unlikely event a fuse needs to be replaced, unplug the AC power cord from the mains power outlet. Then remove all connections from the amplifier. Use a flathead screwdriver or similar to open the fuse holder via the slot located at the top edge of the fuse holder. With the screwdriver in place, push it outward to unlatch and open the fuse holder. Only replace a fuse with the same type, size, and specification, T6.3AL 250 volt. Important notice: do not use any substitute fuse of different type, rating, or value. Failure to observe this precaution may cause damage to the amplifier circuits. It may create a fire hazard and or defeat the safety built into the amplifier and may void the warranty. Section 6. AC Mains Input. The A860 comes supplied with two separate AC power cords. Select the AC power cord appropriate for your region. Before connecting the AC power cord plug to the mains power source, ensure that it is firmly connected to A860's AC mains input socket first. Always disconnect the AC power plug from the mains power source first before disconnecting the other end of the AC power plug from the A860's AC mains input socket. Section 7. Power Switch. The power switch supplies the master AC mains power for the A860. Set the power switch to on setting, trigger off on auto switch set to off position. Zone input channels with active source or input signal will have their corresponding zone LED indicators illuminated in blue. If there is no active source or input signal connected to a particular zone, the corresponding zone LED indicator will not light up. Important notice: if all four zone LED indicators do not illuminate after powering up the unit, it means no one among the zone or global input channels has active source or input signal. Section 8. Stereo Bridge Mode Selector Switch Zone 1 to 4. Depending upon the corresponding speaker's setup connection, slide the particular zone selection switch to either stereo or bridge mode. Local Global Mode Selector Switch. Slide the particular zone selector switch to either local or global depending upon the selected input. If global is selected, the source connected to global's input terminals will become the active input for the particular zone. On the other hand, if local is selected, the active source at corresponding zone's input terminals will be applied. To illustrate, if local/global mode selector switch of zone 4 is set to global, the input from global's input terminals will be the active input for zone 4. On the other hand, if local/global mode selector switch of zone 4 is set to local, input from zone 4 input terminals will be the active input for zone 4. Section 9. Gain Control Zone 1 to 4. The A860 is equipped with separate gain controls for each zone. Before switching on the A860 for the first time, make sure all gain controls are set to minimum level position. Rotate clockwise or counterclockwise a zone's gain control to adjust its audio level with respect to the corresponding zone's input source signal. Level matching. In a surround sound or system with more than one set of speakers, differences in levels can occur due to varying inefficiencies among the speakers. In case your preamplifier or processor also has individual trims for each channel, set these to neutral or mid position, usually marked as 0 dB. Adjust the gain control so that the speakers driven by the A860 have the correct level compared to the other speakers, judging from your listening position. Extended volume control range. Many systems have so much voltage gain that the speakers or your ears are overdriven at any volume control setting higher than 11 or 12 o'clock. As a result, you are confined to using only the lower half of the volume's control range, where adjustments are imprecise and where channel balance errors tend to be greater. If the input level is reduced, you can turn up the volume control of your processor or preamplifier, making more effective use of its range. As a suggestion, adjust the gain control so that your preferred maximum sound levels usually occur at about 2 or 3 o'clock on the volume control. As an added benefit, this procedure suppresses any noise produced by the preamplifier's high-level circuitry, for example, any residual hum or hiss that does not go away when the volume is turned down. Section 10. Input-Output Zone 1 to 4. These input-output terminals are dedicated to their respective zone speakers. Always turn off the A860 and other components in the system before connecting or disconnecting anything to the input-output terminals. Ensure that the supplied input-output terminal blocks plus/minus ground are wired accurately to corresponding output terminals of compatible external devices such as preamplifiers, processors, or other applicable devices. Install the wired-up input-output terminal blocks to corresponding A860 zone input terminals. Ensure that the supplied input-output terminal blocks plus/minus ground are wired accurately to corresponding input terminals of compatible external devices such as amplifiers, receivers, or other applicable devices. Install the wired up input-output terminal blocks to corresponding A860 zone output terminals. The zone output terminal is a line level loop-through output. The same level of input signal at a particular zone input terminal is available at the corresponding zone output terminal, thereby allowing the same signal to be shared or passed on to another amplifier. Section 11. Trigger off, on, auto. The trigger switch has three settings: off, on, or auto. At off setting, plus 12 volt trigger out will output 12 volts when A860 is at operating mode and 0 volts when it's at standby mode or powered off. At on setting and with the plus 12 volt trigger in of the A860 connected to compatible external equipment that is equipped with a plus 12 volt trigger output, the A860 can be switched remotely from standby mode to operating mode and vice versa. At auto setting, the A860 will instantaneously turn to operating mode from standby mode if it senses any input signal approximately above 20 mV RMS input applied through any of the global or zone input sockets. Section 12. Plus 12 volt trigger in-out. Use the supplied 12 volt trigger terminal block connector to connect plus 12 volt trigger in terminal to compatible external plus 12 volt trigger source and plus 12 volt trigger out terminal to compatible external equipment that is equipped with a plus 12 volt trigger input. Install the wired up plus 12 volt trigger terminal block to A860's plus 12 volt trigger in-out rear panel terminal. The plus 12 volt trigger in allows the A860 to be remotely switched from standby mode to operating mode and vice versa by ancillary equipment such as a preamplifier, AV processor, etc. The controlling device must be equipped with a plus 12 volt trigger output to use this feature. The plus 12 volt trigger out is used for controlling external equipment that is equipped with a plus 12 volt trigger input. With trigger off, on, auto set to off, this output will be 12 volts when the A860 is at operating mode and 0 volts when it's at standby mode or powered off. Refer also to the item about trigger off, on, auto. The LEDs will light up when audio stream is present for each zone 1 through 4. Check out the front indicators. Here's an application example of a B400S connected to the A860 utilizing all 8 channels. The A860 is a perfect companion product to the B400S. Thank you for taking the time to review the Bluesound Professional technical webinar for the A860 8-channel amplifier.